Well, welcome to another edition of BizTalk Weekly. I'm your host, Greg Johnson. My guest today is Jacod Langmade with MediaCore. Jacob, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for bringing me on, Greg. Yeah,
Can you take just a few minutes and just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
for sure. Yeah, so we're with MediaCore, like you said. I'm part owner with my brother, who's just on the other side of this wall here. We, in short, help businesses solve problems through video. So we've been in the video production space for 7 years now. Um, my brother went full time in 2019, so yeah, it feels time flew. But we've got a team of six. We're based out of Rochester, Minnesota, and we love just getting to know businesses and sharing their story and what they do.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Jacob, how did you get started in business ownership? Was this something you thought about, I mean, you're a relatively young person, so I'm always curious as to what drives folks to their business ownership days.
Yeah, yeah. So I had not planned this. This was not on my radar. I had went to school for accounting and graduated. I thought I was going to be a CPA, work in a city, just in an office building, and um, a nice, stable, good lifestyle. But the summer I graduated, I had an accounting internship, I was helping my brother out part time with MediaCore, which was about 7 months old at that point.
Okay.
And
Did your brother start it?
yes,
Okay.
my brother
Okay.
started it. He went full time in 2019. Um, yeah, so that summer I was part time with him, and we just saw the opportunity with MediaCore. People loved the videos, loved our work. I really enjoyed the work. So after the summer ended, I decided, hey, I'm going to drop accounting for now. That's always going to be here.
Mhm.
And I'm going to join my brother. I was not a partner at that point. That came a couple years later, but um, just saw the opportunity. It was exciting. Um, and it's been a roller coaster for sure, but that's just how I got into it. So credit to my brother. He made the leap and started the business. I just joined on.
Sure, sure. I think it's always interesting as to, especially family run businesses where there's that dynamic of, in your case, two brothers.
Mhm.
And certainly uh, when you go into an accounting, I have an accounting background, right? And that doesn't really line up with entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
Even though there's a lot of CPAs who run their own business, right? It's just, I think you would probably agree starting and
absolutely.
running your own business has a fair bit of risk involved with it. Does
Yeah.
that align with what you've seen?
Yeah. With accounting, I loved, or I still like, very concrete things. And accounting leans far into the concrete category. Video production and the creative industry is way over here, much more squishy and subjective. So, um, totally different, but I think great for building those different skills, getting uncomfortable. And we're now to the size with a team where I'm kind of doing those concrete things again, um, running the business, working on systems and processes, looking at growth, while we have a team now that's doing more of the video side, but um, still still surprised that I did enjoy it. But yeah, it was great.
I like what you said there about the fact that I think there's a conception about being an entrepreneur and a business owner that it's all about creativity and intuition and kind of gut feel. But really, like you just said, there's a lot of things that go into running a business that they're process driven, they're logical, they're analytical. I mean, talk about that a little bit in terms of how kind of your strength being sort of that logical, analytical mind and how you're using that to run the business.
Yeah. Yeah, we for the first several years of growth, we just by pure um, nose to the grindstone and effort, have grown. We've kind of hit a bit of a wall, maybe the start of last year. And we're like, why is that? Well, you can't just keep on pushing harder and harder. You've got to, at some point, systemize what you're doing and also communicate that well to your team to continue to grow. And that's the point we hit. So I think part of this understanding of the roadblock we're at, we jumped into EOS. We're now in the
Mhm.
entrepreneurial operating system. We're There's a lot of resources and learning in that space, but um, we're implementing those things, and that's even helping us um, have a bit more process around the business, understand, it really comes down to um, getting the right people in the right seats and the communicating expectations clearly. Um, so I'd say that's been really fun for me to get back into um, looking at what we're doing, writing it down, making it repeatable, because we want to scale ultimately. And EOS has definitely helped us with that. And I get to be kind of doing what I have much more skill and enjoyment in at this point too. So
Do you
yeah,
sit in the integrator role?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That would make sense. I've sat in that role as well. I've used EOS quite a bit, and I don't know if that came up when we first met or not, but
I don't think so. Yeah.
I think it's a great system to use. Whether it's EOS or whether somebody chooses another system, just having a way of consistently running the business, I think is really critical. Because, I run into a lot of business owners who they're just all over the map, right?
Hmm.
And it creates some chaos within the organization because folks just don't know sort of what where we're going towards, what what's the priority kind of today or this week, and entrepreneurs by nature sort of are, they have this vision, and as you know from the EOS terminology, they sometimes like to chase shiny things, and that
Absolutely.
pulls
Yeah.
business owners away from, sort of that ideal goal or that vision, right? Thinking that, oh, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity. Talk a little bit about how your company has sort of um, focused in on whether it's an ideal client or an ideal kind of relationship with customers. What does that look like for your company?
Yeah. Kind of like who we serve best or um, who we work with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We we found ourselves now really serving family-owned, multi-generational businesses. Over time, we've worked in all industries, um, healthcare to education to construction, manufacturing, agriculture. Um, but the best stories and the clients that I think enjoy working with us most are those family-owned because they have so much passion. You're usually working with, um, yeah, either multi-gen or the owners themselves. And with what we do, our video being much more organic and authentic. It's not scripted content. It's not planned out. Um, so just that style of storytelling pairs really well with these people who have uh, bled and put blood, sweat, and tears into these businesses. Um, so that's where we found our niche now. Still serving all industries, but really,
Yeah.
um, if you're family owned, multi-gen, and typically even uh, serving the blue collar industries. And they're very visual, and there's just lots of cool stories out there as well. So,
I like that.
yeah,
I'll ask that question of business owners, and I think sometimes they get a little defensive with that they don't want to identify sort of that ideal client because they feel like they're eliminating a whole bunch of potential clients. If you say, well, we work with, family-owned businesses in a particular space, and it doesn't mean you won't do work for other clients. It just means like that's where our focus is. That's how we market ourselves. I'm sure if the Mayo Clinic called you and said, "Hey, can you do some videos for us?" You would do that, right? But it's not business you're
Yep.
necessarily pursuing because it's not necessarily your ideal client. So sometimes that I think business owners feel, it's kind of like fear of missing out, right? Well, if I identify an ideal client, what about the rest of the,
Yeah.
kind of the rest of the world, right? And it's like I think the area you've identified for your ideal client is big enough to, grow your business. And you can always
Yeah.
change your ideal client, right? I mean, that's the great thing about EOS or any kind of a system where you're walking through and looking at your vision, you're looking at your 10-year target and your 3-year plan. I mean, those are
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to look and say, hey, maybe we should expand to, a complementary uh, market or,
Mm-hmm.
another market that might serve us just as well. That's
Yeah,
good.
we even like it so much because our crew is just energized with the type of work, and if the more fun we can have, the more fulfilling work we can do, that's just cool to see the full team enjoy as well, and that, you know, maybe doing the same video in the same industry at the same place week after week. So yeah.
Jacob, do you find I mean, do you get a lot of repeat business, or are you going out and having to kind of find new clients all the time? In other words, is your business kind of one-off and then you move on,
Yeah.
or do you get clients coming back and saying, hey, we'd like another video done, or we'd like more, we'd like to update what we did previously? What do you find?
I would love to say we had lots of repeating work. What we do is more one-off. You know,
Yeah, that's
people aren't looking for what we do necessarily. We have to get in front of them and present the idea, get
yeah,
them thinking about how to use video in ways they never thought possible. So thankfully, um, still about 40 to 50% of our work is past clients where we keep the door
that's
open, the
good.
conversation open.
Hmm.
Um, and there's always more videos to do over time, but it's not something where you need a new flagship video every 6 months. They have a
Right.
shelf life.
Yeah.
Um, so the other 50, 60% is lots of um, almost door knocking, you could say, but virtually, whether it's stopping in
Yeah.
person or cold calling, emails, lots of outreach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen a change in terms of how companies um, approach video? Like you just said, uh, these things do have a shelf life. And I'm just wondering, are you seeing companies coming back and wanting to kind of refresh, kind of a video marketing campaign more often than previously? And I know you don't have a huge long history to go back on, but
Yeah.
you've been running the company 6 or 7 years. Have you seen a change over that time period?
Right now we're seeing a lot of companies trying to tackle video themselves,
Mm,
and short form content, even when we first started, has kind of been a draw and very attractive to many people. 15-second or 30-second videos, very
yeah.
short. Um, that's still a trend and still popular, but we've we've kind of strayed away from that in marketing. We focused in on these um, stories that we can tell that are 3, 4 minutes long. Um, you can tell more with that time. You can really relate to your audience when you get to hear from these speakers. And um, we're using these videos for sales, integrating them into the sales process. We're using
Hmm.
them for internal training, education, you know, kind of these fresh ways video previously wasn't thought of that it could solve. So you're totally right where marketing videos in that shorter form has always been prioritized and it's definitely growing, but we're trying to um, not necessarily get bogged down in that and be carving our own lane.
Yeah, yeah. I think what I'm hearing from you is, and I think um, it's relatable to a lot of businesses, but there's sort of a transaction of creating a video, right? Whether that's a 30-second video, a 4-minute video, a podcast like we're doing now.
Hmm.
But that's sort of a transaction where I think, if I was advising a company, I would say like, what's your overall marketing strategy and how does video play into that? And it's not, well, we just do 30-second clips or we just do 3 or 4 minute interviews or we just do, you really need a strategy that I think combines all of those things because they're all available to a company to use. And why not use all of those as part of an overall umbrella strategy versus, we're going to shoot a video today for 3 or 4 minutes and then we're done. Like now we never have to do anything about that.
Hmm.
Talk a little bit about how you talk with clients about that that kind of broader perspective.
Yeah, that's that's a great question. I'll do my best. That's something where um, you know, my brother, the founder, right across the
Yeah,
room here, and our sales guy do really well. They That's why they're in their roles. They're painting that vision and can just describe it um, um, well. But I think what you said about strategy is huge. We're not just coming in to shoot something and hand you a video. You got to think about where's your business going this year? What do you want to achieve? Where are the pain points in your business? We're using this video to solve those things, not to just be a sexy looking thing that gets thrown on your website. Then yeah, it's not driving value. We never
right.
wanted to be just the good looking video guys. We have a great looking product, but we want to have strategy behind it. So it's really just lots of discovery conversations, figuring out different businesses' needs. And now, of course, we work in all different types of industries,
Yeah.
um, but a lot of the needs are still the same. Kind of like EOS would say, every business is very unique, but it all boils down to very similar buckets. So you can still provide a solution, even if you're not an expert in, say, like specialty aggregates that we just did a video for. Um, but we dug down, found the right issue, and um, gave them an awesome product. They're loving it. It That's a good example of someone who got the first video, saw the use case, and they do several testimonials now, several
Nice.
project highlights of the product. So, um, yeah, a little tangent there, but that's been an exciting one.
No, I really like that, how you talked about that broader strategy and the fact that, sometimes coming at a business from a different perspective is really valuable. I tell a lot of my clients, or I don't tell, I recommend to a lot of my clients that, if they're going out and hiring somebody, I understand you need some specific skills, right? Every role's got that. But if you keep bringing people in, I'll use an example of a construction company. If you keep bringing people in who only have a construction background, then that's what you'll get. You'll get a construction perspective where, maybe somebody with a manufacturing background or even a service background, is going to give a different perspective to the business. And I think using
Mhm.
somebody like your company, for other companies using your company, they get the benefit of all the other clients you've worked with, right? So you've seen things that work, that don't work, that really resonate. Um, it might be
Mhm.
something, what they might consider relatively small, but I think you would probably attest to this when it comes to video. Sometimes a little thing can make a big difference.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I think even the industry knowledge piece, what's so fun is when we come onto these sites or people's headquarters where we're filming, we get the keys to the castle essentially because they want to show off themselves in the best light. So we get to see all operations, the back rooms. They want us to get as full of a picture as what they do as possible. So we get to learn and just get exposure in that process too, which refines the next videos, like you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's really important for businesses to take advantage of, not only their own internal resources, their employees, but third parties that they work with. A lot of times those are the individuals or companies that can bring that unique perspective. You get a chance, like you just said, you get a chance to kind of walk into a business maybe for the first time, and you get a certain, perspective. You get that first time uh, view of a company, and
Hmm.
that's impossible for a business owner to have of their own business, right? Because they walk into it every day and see it every day from their lens. So
Yeah.
that's a valuable resource to be able to tap into. Hey, Jacob, just shifting gears here a little bit, but
Yeah.
you've been in business now for 6 years and just or 7 years, and just talk a little bit about from a standpoint of success. Yeah, how do you and your brother kind of look at your business and look at success and talk a little bit about what makes what's made the business successful from your standpoint.
What's made the business successful? There's a lot to that. Um, we, hmm, it's, I alluded to it earlier. It's been quite the roller coaster. You
Right.
know, we have seen lots of growth. You know, year over year, we've grown 20 to 40%.
Wow.
Now, um, that's starting to compress a little bit as we get larger. Um,
Mhm.
but still just so excited by, I think, the fact that we get to grow a great team around us too. You know, what we're doing in the video industry with bringing everybody in-house isn't really seen. People don't do that. They kind of just hire out contractors, do a project engagement for 1 to 3 months, move on to the next thing. Um, Everyone we have at the business is um, loving what they do. They're on board for the vision of MediaCore, and we just love providing jobs that people enjoy and want to come to work. We love our culture. It's very, um, we're all very close. There's sometimes downsides to that. You still gotta um, get stuff done and do quality work and work hard and get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But we're all just great friends. So I think underneath the layer of we want to be successful, we want to have a company that runs without us, that's growing, that stands the test of time, is um, just building our own internal community and culture and supporting our loved ones, family, friends, our team, um, and just how cool that is. Uh, Enjoying the journey along with obviously the end goal of kind of a successful business.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. And we didn't clearly that was not something we talked about previously, but I love asking that question. And 99 times out of 100 from business owners, I'll hear what I don't hear is sort of money and financial aspect. It's really more about purpose, community, having this passion for what your business does. And that's, I
Mhm.
think, what really drives entrepreneurs to want to do more, want to do better, want to grow their businesses. They know they're offering a service that companies need. and they're filling a gap that's um, can be really can really provide a lot of satisfaction and a lot of just sort of internal, like I'm really doing something good for the community, right? I'm doing something good for
Yeah.
our business, and I think sometimes as business owners we forget that, right? We sort of get caught up in the challenges of the day, and we sort of forget what our purpose is and what's really driving us. And that's again going back to EOS. It kind of forces you to have that conversation about why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even um man, I have so much to learn still, but earlier on, just a few years ago, maybe, I heard so many people in the interviews of these businesses, these owners, the leadership of companies, they're sharing like about the community aspect, and that's what drives them. And part of me didn't understand it at that time. I was like, is this just a thing everybody says? Is it a marketing tactic to look good? But as we've grown, I'm starting to see why everybody says that. It's not just a tactic. It's true, it's honest, it's genuine, and it's just cool to see um, that it was, and it's not just something people say.
Right, right. And that's, where I see successful businesses is is just built around that, right? They're not worried, and it's not that they're not paying attention to the financials and how the business is performing financially, but they're really focused on their clients, providing awesome service, creating a culture. I mean, that's the one thing I heard you say was like we're building something here, and it's not something that is you take for granted because there's a lot of companies where poor culture is preventing them from growing their business, and they don't recognize because you talk about culture and it's like, well, what's culture, right?
Yeah.
Um, but when you're building something where people want to come to work, want to engage, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is we've just seen employees who are sort of, if you don't have the right culture, they just won't engage. And yes, they'll do the work, but they're sort of doing it at arm's length and they're not really embracing the culture, the organization, and what it's really trying to accomplish. So when you can build that kind of culture, you're just so far ahead in terms of where a lot of companies are when it comes to culture.
Have
It,
you seen companies in your experience? Are they able to pull off culture changes? And does that happen at the top? Does it start at the bottom? How do you even make like something like that happen?
right. My experience is it absolutely starts at the top. And can it be changed? Absolutely. It
Hmm.
absolutely can be changed. But it takes a business owner to recognize the importance of culture. If they're not setting the right culture, it can be a difficult conversation to have. I think of like somebody I've worked with in the past where they were very directive and authoritarian,
Hmm.
uh, kind of a do this, do that sort of leader. And and there is a time and a place for that, right? If you're going through chaos, you sometimes need to, be very directive and very authoritarian, right? If your house is on fire, you don't really want the firemen coming to pulling up and sort of having this meeting and saying, how do you think we should approach putting out this fire? No, you just want them to go put the fire out,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But the culture that was being created at this client I'm referring to was employees stopped kind of taking initiative and stopped, even though they saw things that needed to be done, they were hesitant to do it because they didn't know, like, is this aligning with what the owner wants? And it was just sort of
Mm.
creating this fear and hesitation sort of culture. And, it took some discussion, some kind of hard discussion to get that individual to kind of see the impact it was having on his organization. So it can change. It doesn't change overnight. It
Yeah.
takes time. I think the great thing about what you're doing is, you're building it early on, right? I mean, you've taken that approach that we want to have a place where people want to come to work. We want a place where clients are thrilled with the work we do, not just, oh yeah, it was okay. No,
Yeah.
and I think video lends itself to that. Like you've got a product that, is the kind of thing that can really, it's unique and it can really stand out as something special. And certainly all, products and services can be like that. But, if you're producing a widget, do people get real excited about that? Probably somebody does in the organization, but the work you do gets displayed all over the place. So it takes on a different meaning and sort of a different perspective in terms of what you're doing.
We're definitely in the business of just making people look good, and they love to see themselves look good too. So,
Boy, we all
yeah.
need that.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, this has been a really good discussion. Thinking about, when you entered sort of the business ownership, entrepreneurship, and your perspective on that, if you were talking to somebody else who was about to start their own business, or maybe just started their own business or bought a business, what kind of advice would you give them? And I know you could go on for a long time with that, but what are, one, two, or three things you'd really tell them are critical for their business to be a success like yours has been?
I would say clarity of expectations. I think early in the early stages, when we had a small team, just two or three of us, we're automatically on the same page. We've been and we've known each other for so long. Um, we were always on the same page. We had the same expectations. As we grew, we've seen it's a struggle to keep everyone on the same page if you're not consistently meeting with everyone, making sure you're hearing everyone's opinions, their thoughts. Um, you can get down a rabbit hole of issues um, just based off maybe a one missed conversation. So I think just being on the same page with all of your team has been kind of an insight to me, I guess, in the past maybe 6 months to year is people aren't acting or people aren't underperforming purposely. They're not acting on a whim purposely. You're just on probably a different page. Just have a conversation, hear what they have to say. You can share what you think, and then, oh, there's just a misunderstanding. Um, let's get clear. Let's get marching in the same direction and keep on moving. So I think that just has been big. The skill and the constant refining of communication, um, interpersonal communication, and just communication skills is something to, um, yeah, continue to sharpen, continue to be aware of, continue to learn about, because it comes down to people at the end of the day.
That is a great insight. Um, I think businesses when they grow, they sometimes take for granted how important that is, and the changes that occur when it comes to sort of that communication structure, right? Like you think of going from three people to six people, and you think, oh, well, we've added three people, not that big a deal. Well, you've doubled the size of the company, and think about all those communication points, right? Like if there's three of you, there's sort of 1-to-1, 2-to-1. I mean,
Hmm.
you've probably seen that picture where you draw the lines that communication can happen between three people. It's exponentially much, much greater it doesn't double, it like quadruples when you add
Yeah.
more people in, and I think that really demonstrates sort of um, your understanding of how critical that is, that you be communicating and being on the same page. And um, people have to hear things two, three, four times or more, and it's not that they're not listening. It's just that's how human communication works, and we
Hmm.
really need to be focused on it. So I think that's an awesome insight on your part.
Yeah, we were just hearing that from an EOS conference last week. People need to hear things 7 times, and it feels like you're being maybe condescending if you mention it again and again. Like I told them, they're smart enough to receive the message, but or even myself, like multiple times is just absolutely necessary. Um, and maybe one more thing I'll add is um, the need to communicate to everyone on your team very differently. You know,
Mm,
everyone has a different communication style, um, and just adapting to that on the fly, individually or with groups. That's
yeah.
a skill um, as well that I'm trying to hone in. But
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's one of the things I do when I work with new clients is we'll do a disc assessment.
hmm.
So either with kind of the owner or sometimes with like the leadership team but understanding how people learn and how people communicate is really critical, right? And it just if you know how people respond, it can just make you so much more effective and how you respond, right? Like if you're
Yeah,
in a disc assessment, I would consider myself, I'm a they call it a C, right? And it's like you need a lot of data, you need a lot of information to make decisions. Other individuals are like, no, I get it, and I don't need mounds and mounds of data. I need a little bit of data to make my decision, and now I'm going to go, right? And it's really cool when business owners recognize their own style and recognize the style of the individuals around them, because it can make communication and working together just so much more effective.
yeah. I I'll ask you one question if I can. Um,
Sure.
with your many years of experience and just knowledge, wisdom in the business arena, um, with what you know about our business, what might be one thing we should be watching out for? Maybe a piece of advice for us from your end.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I think just in terms of being aware of how technology is impacting and changing your business. And I think a business like yours, you mentioned it just, I think earlier in our podcast, where you said, a lot of clients are doing this on their own.
Hmm.
And I think there's all with technology, there's always this risk that the service we provide is going to be kind of commoditized or simplified to the point where folks can feel like they can do it themselves, right? And how
Sure.
many,
Yeah.
I'm sure you run into clients who walk around their business with an iPhone, shoot video, and say, "Oh, look, we've got a video. Why
Hmm.
do we need an outside firm to do this? We can do it ourselves." And I think being able to communicate to clients or prospective clients kind of the difference that you can provide that they can't provide, or if they are going to do it themselves, they just have to make such a huge investment into it that it just makes sense to hand it off to you. Not that those little videos of on an iPhone aren't couldn't be a part of the solution,
Hmm.
but bringing somebody like your firm in and really speaking to them about, again, we talked about it earlier, sort of this broader approach and how video fits into it from a marketing strategy. Um, and just not, kind of not losing sight of that and realizing that you're going to run into clients who or prospective clients who think, well, I don't know if I see the value in this, or I don't know if
Hmm.
I see, again, thinking they can do it themselves. It's kind of like they have to step out and maybe see some of the work you've done in the past, or maybe they've come as a referral, but recognizing the value of what you're providing compared to what they can do themselves. It's apples and oranges, and they may not see that at first. So I think just really emphasizing the fact that, the value you're bringing is way more than just a piece of video. It's
Mm.
a much broader um, strategy that you're bringing to them. Um,
That's that's great. Yeah, we can definitely get maybe on top of our high horse and think we have a great product. Why can't everyone see that? But take a step back and understand it from their point of view, and especially with um, yeah, consistent technology advances, AI advances, what that is doing. So yeah.
so many businesses now, with AI, of course, that's impacting a lot of businesses, right? But just the rapid change in technology, all sorts of businesses, and it's not just AI, it's other technology as well.
Hmm.
Just staying ahead of that curve, and you being in the video industry, like again, if you're talking to somebody like me who knows very little about video, right? You understand it at a whole different level, and you can bring so much value to a business because of your background, your experience, your skills that you guys have after 7 years of being in the business. It's night and day, but it's like, okay, how do we make sure the client recognizes that there really is a night and day difference?
Yeah.
And that's where again, I'm sure you've got testimonials and you've got examples, right? You can say, hey, look what we did for this client in this space and what the effect was, right? Not just, hey, look at us, we created this great video. No, we had a client who used this video, and here was the outcome, right? And whether it was like
That's exactly it.
their business grew because of this, or
Hmm.
employee engagement was increased because of this, or whatever sort of the solution was, being able to demonstrate those tangible results, I think is really, really important. Not always easy, but I think that it's the differentiator as to why a client would use you as opposed to trying to do it themselves, let's say.
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Well, Jacob, this was really good. This was a really good discussion. I really appreciate you being on the program, and thank you for sharing your insights. You had a lot of really unique perspective on your business. So thank you for being
Well,
here.
well, thank you, Greg. Yeah, it was fun to just chat this morning, and I do appreciate it.
Well, that ends another edition of BizTalk Weekly. Until next time, I'm your host, Greg Johnson. Thanks for watching.